it looks like I have one last thing here from chapter 13 where somebody wrote in and said, there are times when I feel, on page 194, so close to the Lord, I can sense His approval on my life. And on other occasions, it seems like He's a million miles away. How can I have any stability in my spiritual life when the Lord's assurance and presence are so inconsistent? Who's being inconsistent? The Lord or the person? So why would someone say the Lord is inconsistent? Well, it's either what? You either say, I'm the one being inconsistent, or it's somebody else's problem. And do we live in a world where people want to blame somebody else? Yep. I had a man call me this week and talking about his teenage son, and he said he's had 3 different times when he's damaged his car. And I said, and none of it was his fault, right? I said, well, according to him it wasn't. And I said, and he'll keep having accidents until he decides to, what? Take personal responsibility for what he does when he gets behind the wheel? No, it was the weather that did it to him. The weather put ice on the street. Well, if it wouldn't have been for the ice, I wouldn't have slid off the road. Is that what made you slide off the road, or were you driving too fast for the weather conditions? Which made you slide off the road? Your poor driving habit or the weather? You guys want to blame the weather too, huh? We're just not going to take ownership of this stuff. Let me mark you here, Lydia. I just saw you there. Okay. Did I not catch you before? Did I not ask you how you're doing today?
Oh, I guess not. I'm doing good, thank you.
Thank you very much. So, I gave this little handout here just because it's helpful. If you have something that's stressing you out, I would like for you to do a little experiment. Put on this piece of paper, something that stresses me out is, and you don't turn them in, you keep it, you write down what it is. And then each day for 1 week, read or recite Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Do you know Philippians 4, 6, and 7? Anyone have it memorized? Maybe you ought to look it up if you don't have it. You have it memorized, Logan?
I think so.
Be anxious for
nothing.
But
By prayer.
In everything with prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known unto God. So, what I said here is, if something's stressing you out, each day for a week, read or recite Philippians 4, 6, and 7. And since it says, and make your request known and thank God, and I will thank God for, so spend a little time thanking God for something, and then ask God to fix my car so it'll start in this cold weather. I mean, whatever you want to ask. Just ask anything that's causing stress in your life. And then each day when you do it, like today's Wednesday, so if you do it on Wednesday, circle yes. And if you do it tomorrow, circle yes. If you skip Friday, circle no. And then see what happens at the end of the week. Oh, I didn't finish Philippians 4, 6, and 7, did I? Does anyone have the end of it? Be anxious for nothing, but in everything with prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God that surpasses all understanding will guard or garrison about your heart and your mind. So it'll help with your heart, it'll help with your mind. To just do this little Philippians 4, 6, and 7 exercise. And I've had people say, I gave this, the first time I used this was in a class with old people, and I made it small enough where it could be like a heart patch, like the stuff they put on when they need nitroglycerin. And here's what some of those old people said to me. Brother Tom, I think you kind of oversimplified things. And I said to them, you know what? I really think God has given us some simple answers to life's problems. We tend to think that it has to be more complicated than that this isn't going to work, and we push God's answers and solutions aside and then try to tackle the stuff on our own, and it wears us out. I say, why don't you just for a week try doing something that's rather simplistic, but that involves practicing the Word of God, and see what happens. And I'm telling you, if you have something that's stressing you out, if you do this for 1 week, a week from now, you'll have a different perspective. You'll have a different perspective about what's stressing you out. I'm just telling you. And if you don't believe it, try it and prove me wrong. I dare you. I mean, do it. And it's an amazing little exercise. Okay, so I think that's where it just helps us deal with the things in life that stress us out. Okay, we're up to chapter 14 right now, on page 197. Why do my kids fight all the time? Okay, first question I have to ask you. How many have siblings in here? All of you. Okay, did you and your siblings fight all the time? Lydia, did you fight all the time? Was all of your interaction with your siblings fighting?
Yeah.
Did anyone fight with your siblings all the time? No, but we did fight sometimes. I know. So why would a parent write in and say they fight all the time?
Because it seems like all the time.
Because they only notice when they're fighting, and when they're getting along, they don't make notes of that. So the thing that stresses the parent out is they're fighting. I'm going, yeah, but think about all the hours they've gone through the day without fighting. And this person wants to know, why do they fight? Okay, so let's give away all the time thing. Let's just quit talking about all the time and just say, why do they fight? And what's the answer to why siblings fight? Why did you fight with your siblings, Lydia?
Because I'm a sinner.
What?
I'm a sinner.
Because I have a sinful nature. Because I'm selfish. Because I don't want to be bothered. Because I want you out of my space. Because I want what you have. So the rest of you, why did you fight with your siblings? Micah? What were one of the reasons you fought with your siblings?
What you just said, I want what you have.
I want what you have.
So I'd go in my brother's room and take his stuff.
And take it, because you were bigger and stronger and you could.
Well, he was bigger.
He was bigger, but...
I wanted to be like him, so...
So you would take it.
Yeah.
Hannah, why did you fight with your siblings?
Usually because they took something from me.
That was their fault, wasn't it, Hannah? I never fought with my siblings except when they were at fault. We all know that's not true. But, I mean, it's like they took something of mine. Well, doesn't the Bible tell us to share the gift to those who ask you? Well, they didn't ask. They just took it. Anna, why did you fight with your siblings?
I think sometimes because I was bored.
Because you were what?
Bored.
Bored?
Yeah.
And you just wanted to pick a fight? I mean, okay, that's it.
I don't know. I don't, like, my sisters and I, we have a lot of age difference between us, so we don't fight that much, but when we do, it's probably usually over, with stealing clothes and stuff.
Clothes and stuff?
Yeah.
They're taking your clothes or you're taking theirs?
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
Now, why would, see this, I don't understand this. Help me with this, Haley. Why would a girl, if she doesn't want her sister taking her clothes, why would she take her sister's clothes?
Payback.
Oh, payback. That's what the Bible says. If somebody wrongs you, you pay them back.
Eye for an eye.
You get even. I thought the New Testament principle was you give them and then give them, say, oh, you took my sweater? Would you like to have my shoes to go with it? No way. I'm just saying, the Bible presents a whole different scenario, doesn't it? Logan, why'd you fight with your siblings?
I would say it was because I got annoyed or bothered by them, but I think it was probably the other way around because I was the probably annoying little brother.
And so you would just come along and cause a fight by annoying your brother, your siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And the people online just go to the discussion page and start a discussion, say, maybe when I get home I better add one. Why did you fight with your siblings? So they can put up there why they fought with their siblings. And yes, siblings fight. And why can't they be nice to each other? They can. But will they automatically be nice to each other, or do I have to teach them how to be nice to each other? Were you just kind of I mean, if someone gave you a package of M&Ms, did you automatically say, I want to share that with my siblings? You want to keep it all to yourself? Well, if I want to teach you how to be nice, I would say share some of these with your siblings. Anyone ever have your parents give you one candy bar and tell you that the two of you had to divide it? So how did you divide the candy bar?
One of us would split it, and then the other one got to choose.
Got to choose which half they wanted. Because if I could split it and I could choose, somehow my eye didn't see the real middle. And when that's the case, Haley, don't you find yourself being almost like, I want to get a magnifying glass and measure to the very center, so no matter which half they take, they're not going to get more than me. Boy, our depravity really comes, my wife calls it your ugliness oozing out. My depravity really comes through when it comes to dealing with siblings, doesn't it? If jealousy between kids is so common, how can parents minimize the natural antagonism that children feel for their siblings? Or, maybe not that they feel, just the natural things they do that antagonize their siblings. And what does he say? Avoid comparing them. They are extremely sensitive to the competitive edge of their relationship. I hope you reach a place in your Christian life to where you say, I'm not competing with my siblings anymore. I'm simply living my life to glorify God. And what my siblings do, that's between them and God. And I'm not going to compete with them anymore. As Dobson says, but a lot of people, have you ever heard a parent say, why can't you be like so-and-so? I had a friend in high school who I would go to his house and his mother would ask me something. I'd say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. I knew how to be a good little boy. And since I wasn't at her house very often, I didn't have to be good very long to make a lasting impression. And I loved it when she would say, Larry, why can't you be more like Tommy? But you know what would happen when he came to my house? Did that happen with any of you? You have friends, you'd just be as good as you were with his parents because you're only there a short time. But being good all the time is just too much work. Now, see, I didn't get saved till I was 18, so I didn't have an opportunity to get it right when I was younger. But all the years I've worked with young adolescents and early adolescents and pre-adolescents, I've discovered that this seems to be one of the major places in the home with siblings and with parents where Christian young people really struggle. And I'm thinking, well, that might be why God talked to us about how to honor and obey our parents and how to treat them and how to treat others with respect and learn to get along with each other, because he knew we were going to need all the help we could get. Teach them to, I made some notes here that I don't know where I got them from, but from somebody somewhere. Teach them to appreciate each other's gifts and abilities. Teach them to show respect. Step in when there's a contentious situation and try to resolve the conflict. I mean, what can we as parents do? Probably the biggest thing we can do is just be aware of what's going on. Don't just send them off to fight it out, but try to be there to help them resolve their differences. What are the areas of conflict that should be handled with care? Dr. Dobson on page 198 says 3 areas. Physical attractiveness, or that is bodily characteristics. Second, intelligence. And third is athletic abilities. Now, I can see Dr. Dobson talking about their physical appearance. That is just too personal, isn't it? To go around making negative comments about somebody's physical appearance. I still remember some of the painful things that people said about my freckles. And then when I got glasses, what did some of the mean people say? What do they call you if you wear glasses?
4 eyes.
4 eyes. What's that all about? I mean, why would people do that? Because of their sin, because of their depravity. So I think it's pretty obvious, this physical thing. And the matter of intelligence, it's so sad. I don't know, maybe my mother never heard me do it, but I nicknamed my little brother Dummy. Did you do that, Micah? Is that sad? Why didn't someone just grab me by the throat like she did when I stole that stuff and set me straight? Maybe she didn't hear it. But when I got saved at 18 and I came to Bible college and I began to learn all the stuff I learned here at Calvary about how to live and how to relate, I was so convicted about my brother that my wife says I still spend all of my time when I'm around him trying to apologize and make up for mistreating him by giving him that terrible nickname. And it just was wrong, and I don't know why I did it, but just don't attack a person's intelligence. That's what's great about having that handout on multiple intelligences. I think that's why I want to add one called mechanical intelligence, because that's what my brother has. And early on in my Christian life, when I apologized to him for the way I treated him, his response was, "Oh, that's okay, I got over it." And then I was curious. I said, "So how'd you get over it? I want to know what he did to overcome the negative things I did to him." And he told me about how he got over it when he was in the Army and in Germany, and how he was working in motor pool as a mechanic, and the commanding officer, the guy who runs the whole place, came by and said, "Ed, you're the smartest guy I've ever had working in my motor pool." And he said, I remember thinking, if he doesn't know I'm a dummy, I'm not going to tell him. Well, he wasn't a dummy. And shame on me and my brother for giving him that nickname. And I'm thinking maybe if my parents would have watched a little closer, they would have picked up on that and wrapped our knuckles for it, done something to us so we wouldn't treat him like that. But why is this third one mentioned? Why does Dobson mention athletics? Did he play athletics? I think he did. Were you involved in athletics? Is athletics really important? Is it an area where we need to handle this with care? Is it as sensitive an area as bodily characteristics and intelligence? I'm just asking, is it?
I think it's become like a pretty big thing in our society now.
So it's a cultural thing that he's talking about, that it's not just because he played sports and it was a big deal to him. It's become a big thing in our culture. Why is that?
Competition.
I mean, how come athletes are paid so much and teachers are paid so little? How come athletes make more than doctors who save our lives? How come athletes make more than policemen and people who drive the ambulance? Do you understand?
It's entertaining.
We sure pay a lot of money for entertainment in this world, don't we? Boy, has entertainment, whatever that means, has entertainment become too big a thing in our culture? And do we as Christians need to come to grips with that? Now, since it is a big platform, when a Christian has the opportunity to stand on that platform and speak up for Christ, I'm amazed at how many commentators seem to think Christians who are athletes ought to keep their Christianity to themselves, but every other athlete is free to spout off what he thinks about anything. What's that all about? So, here's what I concluded. I could see the thing about beauty or appearance or characteristics. I could see the thing about intelligence, but since I didn't see the thing about sports, I thought, well, if Dobson says this is important, I better help my children become proficient at some sports so they can have that third of this package all tied together. Did all of you develop someplace in life some athletic proficiency? All of you did? Well, my brother was a football hero. My dad played football, so I went out for football. And they just about killed me at the first practice. All the guys my brother used to run over decided that they were going to take it out on me, the little 98-pound weakling. And I'm telling you, I got the wind knocked out of me so many times. And the coach says, "Get up, Bonine." And I finally, after he said it about the 10th or 11th time, I got up and he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm headed to the locker room to take off this uniform." He said, "We're not finished yet." And I said, "You're not finished, but I am." And then I looked over my shoulder and I said, "This game is stupid." He was the history teacher. You know what I did in my history grade, don't you, in school? And then I was so afraid to go home and tell my dad that I'd quit football. I went across the street and got a job working at a gas station making money so I could stay after school, had a reason to stay after school, and I was earning money instead of playing football. And then finally I had to tell him before the season started, "I quit football, Dad, the first day, but I got a whole bunch of money in the bank because I'm working at a gas station making tons of money after school." And okay, I remember he accepted that, but my little brother says he didn't. And he says the reason he played football and let it tear his body up was because, these were his words, because the way Dad treated you for quitting football. But I don't remember Dad treating me poorly for quitting football. But then sometimes bad experiences get forgotten, right? So maybe something happened there. I don't know. But I don't have any ill will toward my father about it. In fact, because I had a job earning money and we were poor farmers, I could pretty much buy anything I wanted. And I enjoyed having the money and didn't miss football at all. So maybe athletics is more important than I realize it is. But to me, my replacement for athletics was bringing home a paycheck. And when I started in high school earning money and realized what it was like to have some money in the bank, I'm going, I like this. I'll go this route. And I guess I would probably say this, probably in my life, I used working and earning money and hearing the boss at the gas station talk about what a good worker I was. I used that to replace athletics. Is that fair to say that? So in a sense, what happens, we have to help people find something that they're really good at that can give them a sense of achievement. Because isn't that what athletics do? They give you a sense of achievement. So let's find something that gives people a sense of achievement. I think in our daughter's case, as much as athletics, it was being involved in band. Were any of you involved in band? Or being involved in cheerleading? All of those, to me, would equate for this third area of life where you develop some competency. On page 202, Dr. Dobson talks about one of your most important responsibilities is to establish an equitable system of justice and a balance of power. So what does he say here? He gives 6 suggestions. I like the first one. Neither child was ever allowed to make fun of others. Now he says in a destructive way. When can making fun of somebody be other than destructive? So I crossed out in a destructive way. I just put down, don't let children make fun of each other. If you want to make fun of somebody, make fun of yourself, not other people. Number 2, each child's room was his or her own private territory. That can be a two-sided coin. Did any of you have to share a room with a sibling? How many had to share a room with a sibling? Okay, how many had your own room? Okay, you've had it both ways, huh, Logan? Okay, now, what do you think about this? If you had to share a room with a sibling, you kind of have a head start on making some adjustments when you get married. If you've had your own room all your life, having a roommate is going to be a real shock. In fact, if you've had your own room all your life, having a roommate in college can be a real shock. So I'm thinking it can be I like the idea of, and since we only had 2 children, and most houses have 3 bedrooms, they each had their own room. And I think it's nice that they had their own territory and they respected each other's territory. But at the same time, I think that the downside of that can be that you don't learn how to share a room with another person, which is something they'll do for the rest of their life once they get married. Number 3, older children were not permitted to tease, and the younger ones couldn't harass. And he didn't require them to play with each other. What do you think of that one? You don't have to play with your brother or your sister. It would be nice if you would play with them once in a while, but it's not required to play with them. Probably one way to accomplish that playing with them is to say we play some games as a family and everybody's playing the game. But I didn't circle that one because I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. You don't have any thoughts about it? Well, think about it and make up your own choice, your own mind. Number 6, mediate any genuine conflict as quickly as possible. I put a big circle around that one. Old Barney Fife said it, nip it in the bud. Take care of this stuff early on. Don't let it get out of hand. If they're yelling at each other, don't wait till you hear them throwing each other against the wall to do something about it. Step in early. Page 203, help for single parents and step parents. Do any of you know any single parents? Do any of you know someone who's a step parent? So there's plenty of that information out there. So what encouragement can you offer to those of us who are single parents? And here's what Dobson says on page 203. The greatest problem faced by single parents is the overwhelming amount of work to be done. Why would that be? If there's 2 parents as opposed to 1 parent, why would be there an overwhelming, what did he call it? An overwhelming amount of work for a single parent.
Because they have to drop the kids off at school and watch them after school, but then they also have to be providing for the family by getting a job.
Here's a single parent who's trying to do everything, and here I come home from work and I watch the kids while my wife fixes supper. if she's a single parent, she has to fix supper and watch the kids. I do the shopping while she watches the kids, or I watch the kids while she does the shopping. A single parent has to do double duty, trying to make all this stuff happen. And Dobson says it's this humongous workload. Well, if all of you know somebody who's a single parent, is there anything you could do to alleviate some of their workload? Can you think of anything you could do to alleviate some of the workload for single parents?
Babysit.
To babysit their kids once in a while. Say, hey, when you need to go shopping, when you've got something to do, drop the kids off and let me watch them. Or I'll come over to the house and watch the kids for you. Any other suggestions?
Well, now, like, I guess this wasn't when, like, a single parent, but one of my mom's friends was really sick, so she, like, you can order, like, so she had her friend get on Hy-Vee and order all the things online that she needed for the house, and then my mom just ran over to Hy-Vee and picked up the groceries for her, so then she didn't have to leave the house, but they got everything they needed.
Yeah. So and your mom just stepped in to help like that.
Mhm.
To say, order the stuff you want and from Hy-Vee, and when it's ready, I'll go pick it up and bring it to your house. Just running some errands for them, helping them with some things.
Yeah, bills get tight when you're a single parent.
Bills get tight. So what can you do about that? You say, well, I don't have any money, I'm a student. Well, what could your church do about it? What could a church do about it to help single parents who are having financial?
Well, I don't know if she said this, but you can buy them.
Yeah, you could
May-
buy the groceries.
You could
you
pay
say
for
that?
the groceries when you go
Yeah.
pick it up, couldn't you?
I just said pick up the groceries. But you
Yeah,
could buy
but you
it.
could pick up the groceries, you could pay for the groceries. You go, that's going a bit far, I don't think I could pay for it. Do any of you have a pantry at your church?
Or buy them diapers because they're.
Okay, if they have little kids, you buy them some diapers once in a while. I mean,
That's expensive.
why not when we're at the store and we see something on sale that a single parent with a young child could use, we say, wow, that's a real bargain. Why wouldn't we buy it and give it to them? Well, I mean, after all, aren't there social services and aren't there agencies that take care of that? In our world, in our culture today, don't we tend to talk ourselves out of helping because we think there's someplace else out there to get the help? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, let's do something about this. Let's alleviate some of their workload. I just saw a thing on television, a news reporter showing a young college student, a pre-med student, who had signed up for a service to being a helper to old people who don't have anyone around to help. And she goes and drives this lady to run errands and do things with her and spends time with her. And she gets paid $13 an hour. Whoa. Sometimes, well, I don't think the single parent has any money, but what could I do for the single parent? What could we offer? I thought it was neat one time when some men at our church who were mechanics said, okay, once a month, we're going to set up a little line in the parking lot of the church, and all of the single parents just drive through the line, no charge. We'll change the oil in your car. We'll replenish the windshield wiper fluid. We'll check the blades, and we'll just help take care of things. I'm thinking, why wouldn't the church do more of that? What's a church pantry do? You say, well, isn't that for needy people? Well, single parents are needy people. Now, if the single parent says, well, I don't want to go to the pantry and pick stuff out, I'd be embarrassed. If you know a single parent who feels that way, why don't you say, what kind of things would you like to have from the pantry? Well, I don't care. Then say, then I'll go to the pantry and get a box of stuff and bring it to your house. You understand? Go get it for them. Now, don't be surprised if the old nature kicks in. You're in the pantry filling up a cardboard box with stuff to take to a single parent, and somebody walks in, and what's the first thing you say to them?
This isn't for me.
This isn't for me. That's right, Logan. This isn't for me. This isn't for me. I mean, so now we understand how that single parent feels because we've had that same feeling. And it's like, I'm getting this for someone who's a little too embarrassed to come in here and pick it up. But you understand because you were right there when someone came in and you felt compelled to say, this isn't for me, I'm getting this for somebody else. But somewhere, we just need to reach out and help those single parents. Page 204, friendship of two-parent families who will take their children. So what that means is that when we had these two little girls and they had a classmate whose mother was a single parent, what do you think we would do? We would ask our daughters to ask that little girl if she'd like to come over and spend the night at our house over the weekend and just spend some time with us, knowing that we were giving the single parent a break, just doing something to help them. Just being a friend. Talks about fixing the brakes, doing things on the house, prayer partners, someone who prays for them. And Dr. Dobson says, I believe it's the responsibility of those of us in the church to assist with the single parents. Do you agree with that? Does your church have some kind of program to assist single parents? You go, I don't know. Well, maybe you're not in a position to ask, but wouldn't it be a question that somebody ought to be asking? Are we doing anything in our church to help these single parents? Many congregations offer programs and ministries geared to the unique concerns of single parents. I've advised every single parent to find a church or a fellowship group and become a part of it and make that their church home. So guess what? If the church doesn't have something going to help single parents, don't be surprised if single parents pack up and go find a church that does have something going. So, my husband died 3 years ago on page 204, leaving me to raise my 10-year-old son and 9-year-old daughter. For the past year, I've been dating a very gentle, godly man who has 3 kids of his own. 3 plus 2 makes 5. Any of you have 5 people in your family? How many do you have in your family? Haley, how many?
There's like 6 of us girls and then our parents.
6 children. Mm-hmm. How many children, Logan, in your family?
I have 5 siblings, so 6.
So there's 6 of you. Haley? Hannah. Hannah.
We have 10 people in my family, almost 11.
All right. So 9 children. Micah?
I just have a brother and a sister.
So 3. Lydia?
9.
How many?
Sorry, 9.
9?
Mm-hmm.
How many children in your how many siblings? How many children in your family?
Oh.
You have a brother?
Yeah.
A sister?
Yeah. Brothers and sisters.
So 3 of you? I met a former student the other night when I was videotaping my grandson playing basketball. He has 11 children. I thought, whoa, how could a student of mine who looks so young have 11 children? Hey, it happens. This lady is thinking about marrying a man where we'll go from having 3 of us in the family with the dad who died, how long ago? 3 years ago, to having 5 in the family and having a blended family. Is 3 years long enough for her to wait to get married? From her daughter and son's viewpoint?
I don't think there's like a set amount of time. I think it's just like it depends on the family and like the healing process that they've been going through.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Dobson says that when 2 people start a relationship like that, they probably ought to include their children in the relationship, in the getting acquainted thing, just to see how this would work out. But no matter what happens, where should we start to build this new family? And Dobson says, get some outside help. Why do we need help? We're going to have a wonderful marriage. She might even have her 10-year-old son walk her down the aisle, you know, when she gets married to this guy. They might get the kids involved in the ceremony. A pastor might be able to guide you through some tough relationship issues to be handled. What kind of relationship issues are they going to have when they form what's called a blended family? Oh, there was a TV show about that. What was it called?
Brady Bunch.
The Brady Bunch. And what does everybody say about the Brady Bunch? It clearly depicted how to have a successful blended family. That is not the way it happens. Not the way it happens. TV just doesn't get it right. And people who think, oh, that's the way it'll work out. And basically, you're already experiencing the thorny issue of conflict. Where's the conflict? Okay, so here's a blended family. He brought 3 children, she had 2. So this new husband of hers tells this 10-year-old that he needs to take some responsibility around the house. And what does he say to his stepfather?
You're not my dad.
That's exactly what he says, Haley. You are not my dad. And if he's not careful, he goes, don't be disrespectful. Because what that probably conveys is he doesn't really understand what's going on in this kid's heart. And that he's still carrying some pain from the past. And he's a little bothered with his mother bringing a new man into the house when his father's gone. And you can read about it, you can do research about it, but blended families need to read a lot of books, and they need some outside help to help them sort through all this stuff and try to make it work. Because it's just going to happen. I mean, whether you like it or not, he's telling her 10-year-old son that he needs to step up and be more responsible around the house, but he doesn't say that to his own son that he brought into the family. Why not? Well, he thinks he's being responsible enough. And are you ready for this? Without even thinking about it, he will be more critical of the stepson than he is of the birth son. And he'll be more lenient with the birth son than he is with the stepson. And he won't even know he's doing it. Without some counselor, without some pastor, without some outside person helping him realize that this is a dynamic that's going on. And you just have to help them work through that. Probably if he thinks that this son, this 10-year-old isn't being responsible enough, who should tell the 10-year-old that he needs to be a little more responsible around the house? The father and the stepfather and the mother have a discussion, and she tells the 10-year-old. You follow the difference? You tell your kids what to do when they need to be scolded, and you scold your birth children, I'll scold my birth children, and then we'll do the same thing that any married couple does. I'll make sure that they're respecting you. I'll talk to my children about respecting you, and you talk to your children about respecting me. I found out that, I couldn't say to my daughters, girls, you're being disrespectful when we're having a discussion. Somehow, is it just, we're talking about depravity, sibling rivalry. Is there a possibility that there's enough depravity in parents that a parent can pull the disrespect card and use it when they don't like what's the direction the conversation's going with a child? I mean, yes, that's potential's there. So what we did at our house to avoid that kind of thing was for my wife to say, girls, you're being disrespectful to your father. And then it was my job to watch and say, girls, you're being disrespectful to your mother. You see the difference? It was coming from a third party, not from the person who you're already struggling with over something that brings about the potential for disrespect. Page 206, I'd like to leave my children with friends or relatives for a few days and get some time for myself, but I'm worried about how this might affect them. Will they feel deserted again? Not if they've developed friendships with people at church and at school and they're just going to hang out with their friends for a while. I mean, they could feel deserted again, but you have to work through that and give it time, and it might be that you need to just have, I mean, if this lady's husband died and she wants to get some time alone, or she wants to go someplace and have some time to herself, why not ask her sister to go with her and watch the kids while she's out doing a spa or getting her nails done? You follow? There's some ways to involve people to help you have some time. And again, you think maybe they can't think about it because they're right in the midst of all this, overwhelmed with all this stuff to do. So try to step up and even offer to say, hey, you know, I'll watch your kids for a while, or I'll go along and supervise your kids while you're shopping. Page 206. My former wife and I were married for 13 years before we divorced 2 years ago. She's remarried and she has custody of our 12-year-old daughter. I've learned that my ex-wife is saying things to our daughter that I feel are damaging to her spirit. Well, should I step in and make things right? And guess what Dr. Dobson says? I wish that were possible. But guess what? You know, I don't know why people don't think about this. When you and your wife got a divorce, you are no longer in charge of how that child will be raised. You know who's in charge of how that child will be raised? The judge, the judicial system. They will say who gets the child for how often and how that parent raises the child. You can't do anything about it. I don't think a lot of people who are entertaining a divorce think about the implications for the children. I think if they did, in fact, I think a few years ago in our culture, there were enough people saying to people, someone said, I'd like to get a divorce. Say, yeah, but think of how that will affect your children. I really believe in the past, a lot of men and women stayed together in less than a harmonious situation for the sake of their kids. Do any of you know some families that did that? You know how you can often tell when that happens? I used to see it happen here at the school when I was here full time and had advisees where I would get to know them and help them sort through some of their problems. And they would say, my mom just called. I'm the youngest in the family, and she said she thought she should let me know that she and my dad just got a divorce. See, what did they do? They waited till the kids were all in college, thinking now they're on their own. It doesn't matter. Does it matter? Okay, because when that person gets married and has children, whose house are they going to go to over Christmas and all the kind of things? You understand? They're going to have to be pretty sensitive to this blended family thing that's going on. On page 207, I'm a single mother with a 5-year-old son. How can I raise him to be a healthy man who has a good masculine image? Well, if you're a single mother, does this boy need some man in his life? Yes. Okay, if we know that's a given, what's the problem? Just let the mother pick some man in church that she thinks would be a good role model for her son. Anyone see how that would play out? Some woman walks up to me at church. She's in my Sunday school class, and she says, Brother Tom, I'm a single mother, and I'd like for you to kind of step up and be the man in my son's life. Who am I looking at real fast to see what kind of reaction she's having? My wife? Do you understand where I could be a little nervous about that? So you can't put the onus on the single woman to go ask a man to do that. Somebody in church needs to talk to this young man, probably a pastor, and find out from this young man, if you had to pick a man in this church to be a role model for you, who would you pick? And have him pick 3 or 4 men in the church and then the pastor contacts those men with their wives and says, this child who comes from a single parent home has picked you as one of the people that he would like to have involved in his life to help him learn to be a man. Would you be willing to do this, and would that be okay with you, Nina, for him to do it? You see the difference in how it plays out? Micah?
I have a good friend that's a single father of 2 children, and I would say that they need a motherly figure as well.
Yes, they do. And I think the best thing for him to do is say to the pastor, can you spend some time with my children, asking them what woman in the church would they like to spend some time with? And it wasn't like I had to spend a lot of time with this guy. In fact, it happened to me not through a single parent Sunday school class. It actually happened through the Awana program. The guy in Awana said, we asked all the boys in Awana, what man in church would you like to have spend some time with you, like once every 2 weeks, a couple times a month? And this boy picked you, Dr. Bonine. Would you be willing to spend some time with him a couple times a month? If a boy in our church said he thought he would like to hang out with me, what am I going to say? Yeah, I have 2 daughters. I don't know anything about boys, but I'll hang out with him. And this kid and I became good friends. And a couple times a week, I'd go pick him up, and we'd go, what do you want to do? We'd go run around and do things. And it was like we became lifetime friends as a result of that. And it wasn't any threat to my family, and it wasn't a threat to his family. It was just, and even though he came from a 2-parent home, and I thought, wow, wouldn't this be something if we did this for all the single parents on a regular basis? And if you don't have enough people in church to do it for all the kids, then at least do it for the single parents. Find someone who'll, and talk to the kids and find out who in the church would they like to spend some time with, just to have someone mothering them once in a while, or helping them grow and develop in their life. Living with a Teenager, chapter 16. How many teenagers in here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, looks like here we are. Said, no, I'm at the end of my teenage years. It's too late. I'm almost ready to graduate from adolescence, and this doesn't apply to me. Okay, so let me ask you a question. On page 211, when I looked at this chapter, I thought, what a question to start with. What is causing this generation to be so promiscuous? Okay, my first question is this generation, are adolescents, are teenagers today being more promiscuous than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
There's nothing new under the sun.
You know what? I'm thinking that this generation possibly isn't any more promiscuous than people have been in the past. You go, I don't know. There's a whole lot of stuff out there that's promoting promiscuity. Yeah, you're right about that. So was there anything promoting promiscuity 20 years ago? Yes. 40 years ago? Yes. Yeah, but it wasn't as... Okay, now this is probably true. But 40 years ago, there weren't as many opportunities for promiscuity. When our girls were young adolescents, when we moved here to Kansas City, and all of their friends hung out at the mall on Saturdays, their parents would drop them off and give them a few dollars to go to a movie and buy some food and just hang out. I knew enough about working with adolescents that adolescents who hang out at the mall are probably going to eventually get tired of being in the mall And if somebody's got a car in the parking lot, they're going to end up there eventually, and maybe even going somewhere, not telling their parents they left them all and went someplace. You understand? That it just looked to me like a bad situation that was simply planting seeds for all kinds of dangerous behavior. So I just said to our girls, nope, you don't do that. We find an alternative that's a better choice for spending your Saturday. And that's when we bought passes to Worlds of Fun so they could have something else to do and invite their friends to go with them. But it could be that people think that the current generation is more promiscuous, and you can research it on the internet. I'm not sure if all the surveys, I've looked at surveys, and some of the surveys say promiscuity is down from what it was 10 years ago, but then you wonder who's doing the survey. So you're not sure if you're getting good information. But young people today are bombarded with immoral entertainment, aren't they? The entertainment industry. And what do they call it? They have a name for putting stuff in a movie that really doesn't have anything to do with the movie. There was a movie made about that ship that sank.
Titanic?
The Titanic. And I never saw it, but I had some teenagers tell me that there was some sexually explicit stuff in that movie that really didn't have anything to do with the storyline and didn't need to be there. Someone just decided to put it in there for some reason. Anyone know what I'm talking about?
I mean, they like fall on love on the Titanic, and so there's like a sexual scene in there.
And could they have had that movie and had the same impact of that movie without that scene?
Probably.
But, and here's what I pick up, but somebody has an agenda. But then, see, I think, what's this guy's agenda? And see, my first reaction is, his agenda is to promote promiscuity or immorality. And it's like, no, Tom, do a little research. Why do they put it in there? Because it increases sales.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, it's a money decision. In other words, are you ready for this? Shocker. In America, in our culture, sex sells. If you add sex to something, you'll sell more of the product. Sexy toothpaste? Give me a break. I'm driving down, used to be 71 highway. I see this billboard. There's this lady reclining on this huge billboard with a black velvet dress on. A very attractive lady holding up a bottle of something. And I'm thinking, is that perfume? And then when I get close to the billboard, I see it. Oh, it's black velvet. You don't know what black velvet is. It's whiskey. She's selling whiskey. And I said to my daughters and to my wife at the time, you know, that's false advertising. That sexy looking lady has nothing to do with drinking. If they really want to be honest in advertising, they would find some wino and take a picture of him in his worst condition and say, buy this stuff and you'll be there too. But that wouldn't sell more black velvet whiskey. So I'm thinking it's not just the movies, and it's not just they're trying to corrupt the youth of our society, they're just trying to get rich. But in the process of trying to get rich, they're leading little ones astray. Now, why do I use that phrase? Because in the Bible it says, woe to those who lead little ones astray. Better for them that a millstone were hung about their neck and they were cast into the sea. Those folks who are doing that kind of thing at the expense of the health and well-being of teenagers are going to pay a high price someday for their misdeeds. Okay, so let's move on. What's the most, page 213, what's the most difficult period of adolescence? And what's behind the distress? So what time in adolescence did you experience the most distress? In early adolescence, middle adolescence, or later adolescence?
I would say early,
Early adolescence?
personally.
Anybody else?
Probably middle.
Middle adolescence? The rest of you? There was no stress at all. I just went breezing through adolescence like it was a piece of cake. Say no. From the time I turned 13 till I got past 19, it's been constant stress or distress of some kind. And it went from this distress to this distress to, I mean, do you understand? The distress changes, but the whole time could be stressful. And it doesn't seem that for girls, it doesn't seem that guys are very sensitive to the distress they feel. And for guys, it doesn't seem that the girls are very sensitive. The guys make fun of the girls and the girls laugh at the guys. We're not even helping each other get through this. It's almost like, could this be going on? I mean, we talked about sibling rivalry. Could this be going on? If I'm going through distress in my life as a teenager, then I'm going to make all the other teenagers around me as miserable as I am. And just spread the misery around. And Dr. Dobson says, typically, but remember when he talked about these personality types, and there's a certain percentage of each one, and there's a certain percentage that you can't even tell what they are because they're such a blend. So it's the thing here, that it could be early, middle, or later, or the whole time. So it just varies. So what happens is you say, well, then that means I need to be sensitive to the teenagers that I have contact with in my life and say, watch for things that distress them. And what are some of the biggest distressors? Self-doubt. What's self-doubt? Let's see, what's one of the stressful things a teenager learns to do? Drive a car? Was there any distress? Was there any distress when you learned to drive a car? So we could put driving a car there. And what happens? Oh, when you first got in the car and started it, you were just oozing with confidence. You put the car in reverse and start backing down my driveway, and my driveway curves. And you didn't notice that, so you drove off the edge and backed right into a bush. Well, we better try that one again. Maybe I better back it out of the driveway and then let you drive it around the cul-de-sac a few times. Did any of you drive up to a corner to make a turn and you were going too fast and you didn't realize it, and by the time you turn the wheel, you're halfway around the turn and your car's up on the curb on the other side? That didn't happen to anybody, or you don't remember that happening? You understand? It's just like they watch other people do it. They think, I can handle this. And then once they get behind the wheel, they start messing up. I'll never forget when my oldest daughter got her permit to drive. We got in the car. We had a big station wagon. We left the house. We drove up to the corner, backing out of the driveway. She almost hit a car on the other side of the street. Got up to the corner and she almost didn't stop at the stop sign. We made a right turn and I said, let's go back home. And she said, what's wrong, Dad? I said, I can't handle this. And I said, we only have one car, and if you wreck it, we're all walking. We went back home and I went shopping for a car, like a little cheap one, that if she wrecked it, we could throw it away and get another one. And said, we need to buy a car that you can learn to drive in. And then when I found one, I brought her out here to Calvary's campus. And I told her in the summertime to drive around the parking lot until you think you know what you're doing, and then I'll get in the car and ride with you. And eventually we figured it out. But she had doubts at first. And then, of course, with my reaction, how did that make her feel? What's the next thing here? Feelings of inferiority. Here's a straight A student who her dad doesn't want to ride with her in a car because he's afraid she's going to wreck the only family car we have. And then great social pressure. Why would a teenager want to drive anyway? Why do you want to go through the stress of getting a driver's license? Because
Everyone else has
everyone else has one. Everyone else has one, so you want to get one too. So I think he's really hit on something here. Page 217. If power is so important to teenagers, and basically what Dobson has talked about is how do we empower teenagers? How do we give them some power? How does this play out in the home? And Dr. Dobson says it's a wise parent who knows how to transfer power or independence to the next generation. That task requires balancing act between two equally dangerous extremes. You dare not set the teenagers free before they can fly, nor do you keep them caged up so they don't get a chance to try their wings. You have to help them develop some freedom. So where do we start to empower them? Find something they're good at. Our daughters, it just happened that in church, all the teenagers would sit together and pass notes, and I didn't think that was healthy. So I told them they had to sit with us in church. Did any of you have parents who made you sit with them in a church when all the other teenagers got to hang out together? Boy, if that isn't social pain, treating me like a little kid. And I finally said, girls, you know what? I have an idea. Instead of hanging out with your friends, you go downstairs and volunteer to help in children's church. So they would go down and help in children's church during church time, and then eventually the children's church people had them help and teach the lesson, and they were very good working with these children. Any idea what grows out of that? If you work in children's church with all the little kids and some adult in church says, we need a babysitter for our children while we go out to this party or whatever, who should we get from church to babysit our children? And what do the little kids from children's church say? Ask Karen and Linda Bonine. They're in children's church with us and we have fun with them. So all of a sudden, our daughters developed some power working in children's church with little kids, and then it became extended power by being asked to babysit children all the time. So then they start earning money. And of course, did you earn money when you were a teenager and then your parents told you how to spend it? Or did they let you decide how to spend the money you earned? Did they let you decide? Even if what you're going to spend it on was wasteful?
I didn't really spend.
You didn't spend any money, huh? None of you wasted any money when you were teenagers?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
all of it.
And Micah, you know what my wife didn't earn money as a teenager. She thought, well, the girls worked hard for this money. We don't want them to waste it. And I said, Nina, I remember being a teenager, like you, Micah, who wasted some money. And guess what? Better to learn how it feels to waste money as a teenager from your babysitting money than to wait till you have a full-fledged job and waste a big bunch of money. Because you learned something from it, didn't you? That everything that sparkles isn't worth what you paid for it. And so you think twice about spending your money later in life. But find ways to empower them. I mean, if there's a single mother in the church, I could have my daughters go over and clean their house. And basically anything you have them do that gives them a sense of accomplishment and people recognize them for being competent at something. So just help them. And that also means around the house, that you empower them to make some decisions in the family, some decisions on their own, some decisions on how they decorate their room, how they rearrange their room, how they paint their room. I don't know why my teenage daughters had such strange colors. They wanted to paint their bedrooms. And then I thought, what does it matter? It's her room. She sleeps in it. I don't have to put up with the color. I just keep the door closed. So paint it some strange color. And it's all part of empowering them. And he talks about that on page 217. And how do you avoid being too early or too late? You just, okay, one thing we did in terms of when I read this stuff when we had young teenagers, I said, you know what, girls? Here's the dilemma we're facing in our house. Your mom has a list of things she wants you to do to show that you're responsible and grown up. And I have a list of things that I want you to do that show you're responsible and grown up. And you have a list of things that you want to do to be responsible and grown up. And your list is not on my list or your mom's list. So I said, let's do something here. I said, you pick one thing from my list that you're willing to do, and one thing from your mother's list that you're willing to do, and your mom and I will each pick one thing from your list that you'd like to do. And I still remember agonizing over some of the choices I made about things they wanted to do to empower themselves. But it's just a delicate process, and just be sensitive to it. And remember, read the books. There's lots of help out there. I mean, this is one book that Dobson's written. He's written others, but there's other people writing books on how to help you help a child through their teenage years. Page 223, it's commonly understood that peer pressure causes teenagers to begin smoking or using drugs. Is that what really motivates them to pick up dangerous habits? Do most of the kids that you know who smoke or drink, did they pick up that habit from peer pressure?
Most likely.
Turn the page and see what Dobson says.
Or parents.
That precise question was the subject of a recent survey. Now, this book's a little old, but the researchers studied more than 16,000 school children in Orange County, California. They found that it was family members. Whoa! Not classmates who had the biggest influence on whether they used drugs, alcohol, or tobacco. Isn't that interesting? Now, I read that and I go, how sad that parents, that aunts and uncles, that relatives, cousins, would introduce their own flesh and blood to damaging things like drugs, alcohol, and tobacco. And then I thought back about my own adolescence, and I told the story about when I was in college, I think, and the professor showing the lungs of a smoker and how bad it was. And I thought, well, why did I smoke in it? Why did I start doing this? Because my dad did. And what did he smoke? Camel cigarettes. So that's what I bought. It's like, why did my dad do that? I mean, as strong a person as he was an athlete. He would know that would be harmful and dangerous for you. Somewhere he picked that up, and he just couldn't give it up. And he smoked till the day he died. And the last summer I saw him alive, in his early 60s, maybe it was his late 50s. We went down there in the summer to help him do his field work, and he's going to bed at night going, ha, ha, ha. You know any smokers who cough like that? And I said to my wife, if he doesn't quit smoking, it's going to kill him. And it did. And I think, how sad that not only did he do that, but because he did it, his 3 sons picked it up. And out of his 3 sons, one of them kept doing it till he died, and the other 2 quit when they saw how unhealthy it was. But our dad was already dead by then. No, my dad was still alive when I quit smoking, because I was in college when I first gave it up. Sad. Sad. Well, let's see. We'll just have to stop there and finish this up on Monday. Is that right, dear?